we're going to make it and kill it 1 year and then lose money for 2 or 3 years, and the bank's ready to foreclose. I mean, that's the way farming is like, and banking is like. And then when I got in the business with 2,500 people like me, coast to coast, I sold out, there were 58. And the reason why we were able to stay in as long as we did and be able to get a decent access to Land O'Lakes was because
All right, welcome back to another episode of Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions. I'm your host, Jeff Barnes, and I'm really excited about this interview with David Radow, the author of Principles of Cartel Disruption. Now, it's a really interesting title, and unfortunately, I couldn't give you all the details during the recording of where the title came from, but let's just say it's a really juicy story, and you want to get the books that David has put out. David is a very credible individual who's had an amazing history of working with things like the CIA and the White House and past presidents, as well as really big companies and doing massive M&A deals, private equity, venture capital, and angel investing. So you're going to get a lot out of this episode, as I did. Really looking forward to hearing your guys' reviews. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Take care.
Welcome to Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions, the place to learn how to fund, scale, exit, and massively profit as an angel investor or entrepreneur. Brought to you by the Angel Investors Network. And now, here's your host, Jeff Barnes.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions. I'm here with David Radow today. David, how are you doing?
I'm doing just great.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for being here. I know we've had to reschedule a couple times because we're both busy gents, and I've got a lot of stuff going on. But I'd love for the audience to learn a little bit more about you and how you got to where you are, including you're an author, multiple best-selling author. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about your journey, and then we'll dive into it.
Okay. Well, thanks. I mean, I'm delighted to be here. I'm really honored to be here, Jeff. I've just been blessed in my life that I've had an opportunity to, I started out and I ran for political office coming out of college, and then that ended up and did some, government work. And then that ended up working for something that turned into, was Citicorp, that ended up turning into MoneyGram. MoneyGram did pretty good. I went to business school and I worked in Chase and credit cards. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I took some shares and decided to, leave the corporate world, so to speak, jump into entrepreneurship with Eggland's best, value-added eggs. And we're able to set the footprint to incubate and accelerate a multi-billion-dollar category of cage-free, free-range, organic, and then it's turned into value-added nutritional and all different sizes. And that has ended up now into the acceleration of the pasture-raised stuff. So in any event, that is just real exciting. In addition, I also was involved in a biotech business and monoclonal antibody test kits, and was able to exit. The first one went to Land O'Lakes. The second one went to Waters Corporation. Along the way, I had an opportunity to do business with Fidel Castro, and we were able to break in down there. There was a hurricane, and after the hurricane, they didn't want to take aid, but he was willing to buy food. Crisis opportunity, and it was a great opportunity to meet Fidel Castro. Once that relationship got going, then the other side of it got going as well, which is back channel diplomacy with the White House, CIA, and State Department, and well as be able to sponsor that beautiful Christmas display that lights up the Havana at night, and then able to, along the way afterwards, to be able to give back tremendously. Tufts University, also NYU, and a little bit at Harvard. But really, it's all about incubation and acceleration, and then exiting, and then the 12 principles kind of go into that, and that's how I got into that. The last 10 years have been exciting. Now, I didn't even know when I sold my businesses what the difference was between angel, venture, and private equity. now I know as an operating partner in all three, and the excitement that you can in doing all three, which I've really enjoyed on the private equity side, both on social benefit and alpha with Fulcrum, Ben Carson and his father, and Harrison Perry, and a whole group of outstanding, dedicated people that are just doing tremendous. The first half fund was 22 MOIC. They just raised $302 million. And on the venture side and the angel side, I'm quite excited that some of my students at Tufts now are in like a series B and C, raising hundreds of millions of dollars. So I'm just really, really excited to both careers as an operator and also as an advisor.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for that background, David. And you've been a busy guy, right? You don't do a lot of those things by just sitting on your hands and waiting for opportunity to come to you. So, you said in the very beginning, you're blessed to have these opportunities. And I always find that, having those opportunities only happens when you're prepared and you have your eyes open and you're looking for them, right? Like things don't just land in people's lap like they'd like them to, unless you are prepared. So going all the way back to the beginning, you said you left college and you tried to go into a political career. I'm really curious, what was the impetus for that?
Well, that's correct. I initially, the impetus was I was a political science major, and I had an opportunity to intern with Congressman Silvio Conti. I worked for the chairman of the Massachusetts Republican Party. Back then, I wanted to work for a liberal, conservative, and moderate. You were allowed to do that. And Conti was a liberal. And then Natsios ended up introducing me to Andy Card and introducing me to George H.W. Bush. And then I met the whole Bush family. And I was involved, and I was delegate to the 88 National Convention, at which point I had my thrill after running for state representative and working in the Bush campaign to go out a winner, so to speak, and then do things on the political side as a industry head. And that's what I was. I was an industry as head of the New England Brown Egg Council, involved with the United Egg Producers and the United States Poultry and Egg Export Council. So that's what you do. You end up and learn gratefully for it. And then, all of a sudden, 15, 20 years later, here I am going to Cuba, and I have Andy Card as chief of staff of the White House, and W, who I met on the campaign, is in there, and my protege, Andrew Natsios, is in charge of the Agency for International Development. So it was a great intro. When I sat down with Fidel Castro, in addition to all the congressmen and senators I knew, then it was an opportunity, Fidel Castro, to really have a fruitful discussion to say, hey, you want to buy some eggs? Do you want to buy some chickens? Is there anything you'd like me to say to the White House chief of staff and everyone else in the White House and the Bush administration that may be encouraging to you? And it was dead silence. And then he turned to me and he said, we are going to buy eggs. And then how relationships develop. So you never know where things are going to end up. You just don't. You just want to find out what you don't want to do and then learn as much as you can along the way.
Oh man, that's gold right there for anyone who's still earlier in their career trying to figure that out. I couldn't tell you how many times I've thought about that over my career. It's like, why am I doing this thing? And never really spending the time to sit down and say, what do I really not want to do? Because a lot of the times you don't know what you want to do, especially early on. You have to go out and experience the world to figure out what you want to do. But I learned pretty quickly what I don't want to do. And it turns out there's a lot of things over someone's career that you find out over and over again. I don't want to do this. I don't like doing this, right? So I think that's a really important, insightful thing right there.
Yeah, it's a lot easier too. And especially when people in their early career, they're like, I have no idea what I want to do. And I'm like, well, you know what I mean? You want to be an engineer? Of course not. You want to be a doctor? No, not really, So, okay, how about an entrepreneur? Well, maybe that's in the picture. So, maybe you want to work for a private equity firm. No, I may want to do that. Okay. So let's see if we can go ahead and get an internship or get some way to go and work for them. And then you'll have an opportunity to find out, is this something that you want to do or don't want to do?
And I think just moving forward nonstop, right? That's one of the entrepreneurial ideas, is that you fail forward, you fail quickly, you just keep moving, but you're going to learn along the way, right? And really the only time you fail is when you quit, right? And you give up. And I coach a lot of little leaguers, and we talk all the time. They feel like, oh, I struck out. It's the end of the world. It's so bad. It's miserable. It's like, no. You just learned how not to do something, right? Now let's focus on getting better the next time and improving. And I think that's just a lesson that we have to take forward with us in life. And obviously you've been doing a great job of that, because you've done so many different things. And I think a lot of people would just look at that in awe and say, wow, this is incredible. Like, how can I do that? And I think it comes down to what you just said. Keep going forward and figuring out the things you don't want to do, and then keep following that path. And you've led one opportunity into the next, and leverage them along the way. And I think that's a lesson that's only learned through age and experience, right?
Yeah, and I know you're teaching those little leaguers. I was a coach for 7 years, and you teach those little leaguers. It's the number one thing to learn, that you got to grind it out. You got to grind it out, and you just got to keep grinding, and those opportunities will pop up if you keep grinding and you keep networking and you talk to people that, and for people listening, I mean, some of my greatest people that I do business with, even today, there's someone who I actually played wiffle ball with when I was 10. Okay. And he's a managing director at Stiefel. Okay. And I get contact with him. I mean, it's like there are opportunities all the time. And there's these associations and your networks. They're your gold.
Absolutely. Yeah. I keep cultivating that. So I want to go back and talk about Eggland's Best, because one, eggs were vilified for so long, and wrongly so. We know the literature out there. They're one of the healthiest things out there when it comes to, a lot of different areas, brain development. And, we can geek out on that maybe at some other point, but you had this charge of trying to figure out how to take an industry. And I don't know if you came in while it was still being vilified, but even to this day, it's vilified to a certain extent, right? And turn it around, and had a very innovative approach in making that happen. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about what was the thought process going into that, and how did you guys end up with a situation where you created this essentially a whole new category?
Well, it's really with a group of great partners from coast to coast. Without a doubt, if there wasn't all of us, pledging together our unique characteristics, I just happen to be exceptional at new product development marketing. That's just my, niche. But there were people there that were experts in quality assurance and experts in production and operations and what have you. So if you combine all that group effort and also being able to put together something that turned into a coast to coast and international brand, then you have the opportunity to accelerate. So once we were able to get and do all the testing, and it happened in New England, it didn't happen overnight. My goodness, the FDA came after us, and now you can eat real eggs again. And then we had problems, and we were off the shelf, and then we changed it from Heartland's Best to Eggland's Best. Finally, after 7 or 8 years, we went in and got it right. We got it right with the messaging. We got it right with different packaging. We got it right for different sizing. We got it right with cage-free, free range, organic. And we're able to come up on the shelf and make it a billboard. One thing we did know really quick, the consumer took mostly stressed out women, okay, that are working or, have kids at home. They're going to take 7 seconds. So you really need to set up that billboard effect So if they're going to be, you want them to be a little bit confused, different packaging, different messaging, but they're all the value added types, whether or not, and that's how we really started to attract when we had that billboard and we kept pushing and then we kept doing the promotions and the sales. And then all of a sudden that turned into a private label brand. So all of a sudden I said, great. Now we have 4 more SKUs of value added eggs in the category. Then you want to go with a secondary brand. And then you get the strawberry chocolate vanilla. Now you're ready to go to pistachio. So we went with eggs in the bag, deviled eggs. And then you can go into breakfast food. So the bottom line though is the base of it was that we were able to keep a value price point with different products and exceptional increase in packaging to drive tremendous sustainable results. And once we were able to prove it in test in New England, then it just grew nationally.
Before continuing, please subscribe and share this video to help us reach more people and stay notified of our latest releases. Now, let's continue watching and learning.
I love that. And there's so many lessons we could dive into with just that one idea. But I'd like to hit on one that I think is really important. First off, we're not talking about a startup here, right? We're talking about a big company, innovative company that had to, already had customers, already had track record, already had this, but still trying to find that really good fit in the marketplace, right? And we're not going to call it product market fit. I don't think that's the right terminology for it, but you're identifying who that avatar was, who that ideal client you were going to go after, and you had to hit the value proposition that was meaningful for them to start seeing the uptick in sales. Because I can't imagine that sales were falling off a cliff. Like, it's a consumable, it's a food product, it's something that people still wanted and had in their diets, but there was some hills to climb.
Yeah, that's correct. In New England, we had a commodity brand called brown eggs, right? So we were able to take it up there. Now it's just increasing the value. So you needed to see basically a fast growing niche of a very large category, such as eggs. And we were looking to get more stable in the pricing so we can, every time you sell a product, you make it a profit rather than it's just clearly feast or famine. We're going to make it and kill it one year and then lose money for 2 or 3 years, and the bank's ready to foreclose. I mean, that's the way farming is like and banking is like. And then when I got in the business to it, 2,500 people like me, coast to coast, I sold out. There were 58.
Wow.
And the reason why we were able to stay in as long as we did and be able to get a decent access to Land O'Lakes was because the brand was a lifeboat and we had value added products and markets that kept us going into the good times and the bad and kept their double-digit rate increases, while at the same time, we were doing feast and famine with all of our market share.
Yeah. It's such a valuable lesson to learn. And for people that are out there, feeling like they're in that feast or famine, it's like, how do you get out of that? And product extension, innovation, coming up with, how do you even take the single product? I heard this a long time ago from a sales trainer. And so, gentlemen, learned from Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and these folks on the personal development circle. And they were saying, it's so much easier once you have a great presentation to go and find a new audience than it is to try and create a new presentation for the same audience, right? And if you apply that across business, it's the same thing is true, right? Once you have a great product and you have, marketing that might work and that this product is a great product, now you can start scaling out to maybe different customer segments. And maybe you have to change the marketing and the messaging a little bit, but as long as the product itself can stand on its own, then it's a lot easier to expand and grow the business. Do you believe that's true?
It is correct. And you really got to keep your ear to the ground on what the new changes in the consumer waves are coming. For ours, it was natural, healthy, organic, right? So you're keeping an eye on those buzzwords. We did a focus group that's in chapter 1, okay? And we're able to figure out, what things, buzzwords that you think are going to resonate with your UK avatar, your target market, right? And we put stuff in there that really registered well, some registered medium, and stuff that just totally failed. And so, but that's how you do it. You're right. You got to find ways on the new stuff over the horizon and figure it out how to do that. And the number one way, we had Martha Guidry, who is a former Procter & Gamble market researcher. And, a lot of people that I know in business say, focus groups are ridiculous. Market research is ridiculous. And I look at them and I say, that was absolutely the best $10,000 and $25,000 I've ever spent in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you define your market, you define your presentation, you define whether or not you really have something to sell or not sell.
But the important part, I think, of that is learning, right? And
Correct.
I feel like there's so many people that will throw money towards advertising or towards a campaign and whatnot. And they're doing a terrible job of tracking and paying attention to who's responding, who's not responding. And so they don't even have actionable results that they can work on. They're like, oh, that just didn't work. Let's try something new. Versus what you just said, which is it's the most valuable thing you can learn as long as you're paying attention to the signals that are coming from it.
Yeah, I think it's great. And when you get to the test market phase, which is the next, then you're able to react quicker. I mean, in our situation, we had a paper organic egg and it was failing. It was going out of code. We caught it quick and we changed to plastic and it saved the organic SKU, which is a big deal because it didn't get a bad taste in the retailer's mouth to say, we put something in, there was a mistake or a problem, we're changing it out, you're going to have new packaging in 2 to 4 weeks. That's how quick we were able to react.
That's
and
awesome.
By doing that, you really are testing and we turned it into a tremendous successful product. So there are, in the laboratory, you're going to have to tweak for at least a year. Okay. Sometimes with the whole Eggland's Best thing, it was tweaking for several years because of some regulatory issues we ran into. But once we got it, then we tweaked it, put it up, and it exploded.
Yep. And you got to stick to your guns and say, yeah, we're going to keep testing. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. Right. So I love that.
It goes back to the grinding. It goes back
Absolutely.
to even your, the baseball kids. You got to grind. You just got to keep on running it out. You hit the ball to the shortstop. You don't stop running.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've been talking a little bit about, your career and some of the great lessons you learned along the way. And you wrote a book called The Principles of Cartel Disruption. I'm really curious, one, how that title came about. I have an idea, but I'm really curious what your thought or what you're going to say about that. And number two, what are these principles?
Well, I mean, you go ahead and you're dealing with business, and there are mindsets in business, right? So the cartel mindset is everybody's going to get together. We're going to try to kill the competition. Anybody comes out with something new, we're just going to bury it. We're going to run ads. We're going to throw slotting. We're going to do everything humanly possible to kill this guy so he doesn't succeed, right? Meanwhile, the disruptor is coming out saying, we're going to give the customer what they want. We want to give something new. We're going to give them the packaging. We're going to give them the healthiness, the organic, the value added. We're going to give them everything they possibly want, right? And then we're going to get the shelf space from the cartel mindset, right? And then we're going to grow as a fast growing niche of a small category, of a large category, and grow that, right? So it's two different mindsets. So when you go and say, what are the principles? And I'll go down and I'll list them for everyone's benefit. Okay. The first principle is your value proposition. Understanding your value proposition, right? Our opportunity in creating that winning value proposition. The second one is underfunding, design and deliver a pitch that secures your funding. Understand the basic legal game, documents, funding, legalities of international, that's intellectual property protection. Very important that you're going to have that discussion. You may not want to go and file your IP, your register, or what have you, and you may want to go the trade secret route, but you got to think about this, because when it comes in the end that you do have intellectual property and you're on the exit, you're going to get a lot more in terms of multiples of EBITDA or multiples of sales or whatever, because you got intellectual property. So that's something to think about. Develop, profound, and secure strategic plan. Clearly understand the people resource, understand processes, understand sustainability, understand operational metrics. So you understand when you go to test, what are you looking for? When I gave that example of the organic eggs being one. Understand your exit opportunities and prepare to make it happen. Select a talented board of advisors, utilizing different things that you need, and then understand the importance of giving back your time, talents, and money. And then principle 12 is understand the cartel leadership rules. So understand how the big guys are going to play. They don't play, they will try to kill you. I don't care if it's a service, it's a product, or what have you. The big companies or the people, industries working together, they're going to do anything from lawsuits, money, targeted advertising, anything they can do to throw tax on your tires. Generally, you got 18 months to 2 years or so to be able to, get some traction, because they're not going to waste time trying to go after every single disruptor. Okay.
Right.
That would be fruitless on their part, because they're going to figure 75% of them are going to fail anyways. So once you do get some traction, that's when the sites will come after you, and they're going to take a look at you to say, hey, what can we do? Maybe we can buy them out. Okay. If we have to, maybe we can put them out. Maybe we can make their life miserable. Maybe we can find ways to cut their resources. Maybe we can do whatever we need to do, okay? So remember what they're in the game for. The cartel's in there to increase cash flow, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I love that. They're going to talk to their competitor. If talking to your competitors increases cash flow, guess what?
Yeah.
They're going to talk to their competitors. And putting a disruptor out of business increases their cash flow. What are they going to do?
Absolutely, yeah. It's you would say, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, right? And maybe you like the offer, maybe you don't. Maybe the offer is that you let us buy you, or we're going to do everything we can to crush you. And I know that that's the David and Goliath story over and over and over again.
Well,
right?
I took the money from Land O'Lakes. I'm not fighting a $15 billion company. You can have it.
Right. I learned a long time ago, I heard somebody say, one of the battles you never want to fight is with one of those 3-letter agencies either, because they have unlimited funding and an incentive to take you down no matter what. So I was thinking about that as you were talking about the FDA.
And I want to say one thing about it. I have never, and really, Land O'Lakes are a bunch of real great, honorable people. They paid every single dime they said they were going to pay. They were right on time. And I find them to be outstanding people to work with. So if anybody is in that market looking to exit, okay, I can't say enough about them.
And just to put a little pin on that one, it's not so much that these people are evil, right? When they're the big company looking at it's they might be ruthless, but that's very different than, being a bad company. Ruthless means we're going to do what we can to take care of our stakeholders, our shareholders, our, the folks that we need to take care of. And I was that guy when I was in corporate America. My job was to go find the potential disruptors. And it was to find them early enough on to where we could either partner with them, invest in them, or acquire them, or just learn from them maybe, right? And so sometimes you're not, if you're the little guy, if you're the entrepreneur, if you're the smaller company, you're the David looking up at Goliath, it's not so much that you need to fear them. It's more, how do we position ourselves either to compete if you really, really want to? I mean, sometimes that's a silly idea, but maybe there is a reason to do that. But more importantly, what we say is like you were saying this earlier, which is, what's your exit? Where do you want to take this company in the future? Whether it's 5 years, 5 decades, what does that exit look like so that you can position yourself in that realm, knowing that the big dogs in the market are ruthless and they're going to do what they can to survive?
Well, that's just the way it is, that they will. And that's why I put in that chapter 12 in the second book. So people can really get a keen sense, the way they survive. And you really have to be in a situation where there's not going to be any fallout on you. Like if I was in industry and I wrote that, I mean, they'd come at me like hammer and tongue, right? It's like, what are you doing writing stuff like that for, right? Well, now I'm in a situation where I'm trying to educate people, as you are,
right?
Jeff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm they're not going to teach that stuff in classes.
Yeah, you can't go into the world with rose-colored glasses and just hope everything's going to work out in your favor. You got to be prepared for it. It's the real world out there.
Real world, and then real solutions. And when I remember, I went to business school, and it was a great school, NYU. But I had half a year, probably one class on law. Okay, and lawyers go through 3 years of training and 10 to 20 years of litigation coming after you. Okay. So, you need to understand that you got to get some litigation training, or you're going to go into business and you're going to get sued. Then you're going to get some litigation training.
Yeah.
And
you'll find out one way.
I went through some of my troubles that I went through in Cartel disruption and secret stories about what I went through and how I learned the hard way. And I lost 1.3 million. And I didn't go bankrupt because I had to learn how to survive. And I had 15 lawsuits, and it was a shipping business. And the boys and girls got together and they decided that they were going to lower the rates to $20 from $2,600 because they didn't want me in business anymore and our company in business anymore. Right. Wow. So I learned the hard way. And you're not everybody. I always say this, that it's always worth an opportunity to learn people that have gone through it. And it's a lot easier to do it than sometimes running into a wall to realize that it's there.
Yeah. I mean, learn from other people's mistakes, right? Life's too short to make them all ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. I mean, it's interesting what you said, Jeff, because I ran into someone very similar in one nature, and I spoke at a conference, and a guy came up to me and he said, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was on a team in a corporation, and our job was very simple: steal intellectual property and replicate it. And I said, "There's a team?" He says, "Absolutely."
Yep. It's a cutthroat world out there. Yep. Well, David, it's been a pleasure. We're at time here, so I want to give folks a chance to get to know you as well. And where can they follow you? What's the best place they can go to learn more about you and get the book as well?
Okay, thank you. Anybody can go to davidradlow.com, and you have an opportunity there to get information on Secret Stories, Leadership Growth and Innovation, Principles of Cartel Disruption, and my Forbes Books podcast, Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth, Transforming to a New and Better World.
Beautiful. I love it. And we'll make sure we get all of that inside the show notes. So if you're watching this, listening to this, make sure you check out the show notes so you can get links to all of those incredible resources from David. So David, I want to take the time to say thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. We can go on and talk for hours probably about all these different topics, but just the interest of time, we're going to wrap it up now. So thank you again so much for being here.
Delighted to be here, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And as always, you're listening to the Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Take care.